Thanks for listening to Creative Control. While I have you here, please consider supporting Youth Empowerment and Support Services, otherwise known as YES. Based in Edmonton, Alberta, YES provides immediate and low-barrier overnight and day shelter, temporary supportive housing, and individualized wraparound supports for young people aged 15 to 24. They work collaboratively within a network of care focused on the prevention of youth homelessness by providing youth with the necessary supports to stabilize their housing, improve their well-being, build life skills, connect with community, and avoid re-entry into homelessness. Learn more about how to donate or otherwise support YES by visiting yess.org.
Hey, this is Trevor from Halifax, calling in to say that I support Creative Control on Patreon because I think long-form arts journalism is a crucial part of music culture, and there's simply not enough of it out there today. Vish is a master interviewer, he lands great guests, and he has his finger on the pulse of the ever-changing music landscape, both here in Canada and abroad. For all of these reasons and many more, I think you should support Creative Control on Patreon too.
To make your flexible monthly donation to Creative Control, please visit patreon.com/Creative Control today. I'm Vish's wife, and I will love him no matter what you do. And now he has me on the record saying that.
Tamara Lindemann is a gifted theatrical performer, filmmaker, musician, songwriter, and singer based in Toronto, Ontario. Known the world over for the music she has released as The Weather Station, Lindemann has truly broken through with her 2021 album, Ignorance, which has earned The Weather Station rave reviews from and profiles in major news and music publications internationally. A sonic departure from folk and rock instrumentation into synthesized and more rhythm-based music, Ignorance is available now via Next Door Records in Canada and Fat Possum Records worldwide. For her fourth appearance on this show, Tamara and I discussed life during a pandemic and the relative calm of the media mania swirling around her and Ignorance, the weather station's new sound, and artists who challenge themselves and their fans, writing about climate change, gaslighting, and the truth, lip-syncing, and the beautiful batch of music videos she made for Ignorance, an unreleased new album and a book project, future plans, and much more. A part of the Entertainment One Network with the support of listeners like you who follow and subscribe to this podcast and spread the word about it and make flexible monthly donations at patreon.com/Creative Control, with additional support from Blackbird Music, a fine record store with inviting retail locations in Edmonton and Calgary, Alberta, and thousands of competitively priced new and used selections, and friendly staff happy to help you source special orders for hard-to-find titles, which you can learn all about at blackbird.ca. That's blackbyrd.ca, blackbird.ca. And Massey Hall's concert film series live at masseyhall.com, where you can stream dozens of 30-minute films for free, including performances by past and extremely recent podcast guests like The Weather Station, plus in-kind support from Pizza Trocadero, The Bookshelf, and Planet Bean Coffee in Guelph, and Granddad's Donuts in Hamilton. This is the 600th episode of Creative Control, featuring the wonderful Tamara Lindemann of The Weather Station, with your host, me, Vish Khanna. Hi, Tamara. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well. Thanks for asking. First of all, where in the world are you?
I'm in Toronto.
How are things in Toronto for you right now? Maybe even in the grand scheme of things. Some would say it's been a hell of a year. How has your year in Toronto been?
I mean, I feel like this year I could be anywhere, you know? I don't really feel like I'm in Toronto because I can't interact with the city at all. So I feel like I'm living in my strange hermit hole, basically. Yeah, I mean, I think Toronto's had a bit of a rough time. Like, we really have been under some level of lockdown for almost a year. And it's not really showing any signs of letting up anytime soon. And the rest of the province keeps opening back up and we stay locked down. So Toronto's very, you know, gray and slushy. But, you know, I'm at the point in the pandemic where when it's a sunny day or the sky is blue, that seems like a very big deal to me.
Yeah.
And very excited to see that it's sunny today. So I'm like, Toronto's beautiful.
You mentioned a hermit hole. Not only hermiting, but a hermit hole. Is that where hermits hang out? In a hole? I didn't realize that.
I said that and it immediately felt like the wrong phrase. I thought about saying my bubble, but bubble now has all these pandemic meanings. So
Yes.
I don't know. I feel like it's a bubble or.
I apologize for drawing attention to something that you immediately regretted. But my point here is this hermit hole you describe. Are you someone who tends to spend time in a hermit hole of your own making? Pre-pandemic, did you like to keep to yourself a little bit? Has this been a radical shift to not see people as much? I can't tell with you sometimes because I know you. You seem like an outgoing person, but you're also, I think, a little bit introspective on some level, maybe a little self-contained. Do you know what I mean? Was it a hard adjustment to spend time mostly in a hermit hole?
No, not really. I am actually I'm definitely an introvert, and when I'm in a social situation, I can be social, but I'm definitely someone that needs to scuttle off to my hiding place and recharge.
Yeah.
So I was slightly unnerved by how little of an adjustment it was in some ways, and how strange it is to kind of be getting by on these little scraps of friendship and social interaction. It's somewhat unnerving to me how little it takes, but also, my life right now has been very busy, and I have been doing a lot of interviews, and it's a lot. So I think I wouldn't have much space for social interaction anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair. A couple of things well, first of all, what I neglected to do maybe at the top, as we're speaking, it's about the end of February 2021. Mm-hmm. Your album Ignorance has been out a little while, and if I may, as a colleague, as a friend, congratulations. It seems to me that the record has transcended, I don't know, your past profile, your past success. Does it feel, you must be aware of this on some level, it feels like it has really resonated, certainly with critics. How does that feel for you? I mean, not to downplay your past success, but does this feel particularly prominent, like the attention this record is getting?
Yeah, it's really different. It's really, really different. And the way that people are responding is really different. And it's very interesting. I mean, I've never really experienced this before, obviously, and it's interesting. I mean, I haven't really felt like I was able to take it in, because it's just sort of a lot, and you don't want to get caught up in reading your own press or anything. Yeah. So I've been mostly just trying to store up the reality that this is happening, and put it in a box for a rainy day, for that time a couple months from now when I'll feel like, why am I doing music? These moments, that I know happen. But it's really interesting, because I feel like I am someone that I did start this on such a DIY level, and worked so hard, and everything was always carrying something through the mud, just trying to book a show at the Cameron House or something like,
Yeah, yeah.
and trying to figure out how to, my first record I put out myself, and it's interesting to have this experience of like, oh, it's more like I'm being pulled through like very fast through a very big space, and I actually like kind of can't believe it. In
Yeah.
part, I think it's very surreal because I'm, as I say, still under stay-at-home order, so I'm like having this like metaphysical experience of like a theoretical success, but I'm still like, okay, like time to mask up and go get groceries. My life isn't actually any different. It's just, yeah, it's interesting. It's very strange.
That is true. I mean, in most pre-pandemic, in a situation like yours where a record is, if I may suggest, it has exploded in terms of its profile, like, yeah, you would be on the road. They would be like, we got to get you, like, your tour, you got to get a tour going. You've got to, we're going to put you on all the talk shows, all that stuff. And maybe that stuff can still happen virtually. Some of that stuff can still happen virtually. And yeah, but there's this weird thing now where, yeah, I mean, to have the sort of internet success you have, but then there's just stillness. So you get the sort of probably an email or an announcement or something where like, oh, so-and-so is profiling me, but I'm just in my house. Like I'm not, I'm not, experiencing this. Because sometimes, I mean, you've had this before though. People, I appreciate, I hope you.
Yeah, for sure. Pieces of it, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
I hope you appreciate that, you've had this track record. You've been a public figure for some time. Imagine this was your first, blast, and you're getting all this. Like you have a bit of a callus. Like on some level, you have to compartmentalize external reactions to your work. And I hope, I feel like you have the experience to, if anyone can take what's going on right now, it's you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, I have thought about that actually, because I do know some people who had the experience of like their first record comes out and all this stuff happens to them. Like my friend Julia Jacqueline, who she's Australian, and I wound up sharing my band with her for a bunch. For a couple years, and she had that happen where she came out of the gate with her first record and had this level of success, and yeah, I just feel really grateful and lucky that I've been on all sides, like I still, when I'm out on the road and we have like a rough show or whatever, I still have that little voice in the back of my mind that's like, wow, I can't believe we even have a show, in this random, city in Germany. Like I remember when I just wanted to go to Europe so bad and it wasn't possible, like I've been on all sides of it. And I think I also feel really grateful that like what's interesting to me right now is like I feel like I'm more myself in public than I ever have been, and I've been so like oversharing and overthink, like I'm being very much my like overthinking, overfeeling self, like on social media, which is like runs counter to the way that people want you to be. And I find it so interesting that like, I feel like I guess what I'm saying is I feel like I'm succeeding on my own terms in my own way, and not because I like followed the rules and did the right things. And even though, you could say, yeah, like I definitely, yeah, I don't know.
It doesn't feel
I guess I just feel
contrived or anything. You feel like yourself.
It doesn't feel false. Yeah. But definitely like it is also an interesting lesson in just like understanding like how little external validation matters, like it really doesn't matter. It does matter. Like you need enough to like know that what you're doing has some meaning to someone. But I can remember like the first like MySpace message I received from somebody who liked my songs, and that meant just as much. You just need that little touch to know that you're not singing into the void. And then once you have that, the rest is actually, you don't, it's sort of meaningless. And if you got too caught up in it, it would destroy your creativity, I think.
Do you, I mean, I hear your perspective there, but do you have a sense of why you feel compelled to be the most yourself you can be at this particular moment? Do you know why that is?
Well, I think it's just because it's true to the record, and it's like the way that, like, I had to do this thing where, you know, my label wanted me to post these little videos like once a day, you know, talking about the song, and every time I just was like, oh God, I can't do this. But the most truthful way to talk about it would be the truthful way to talk about it, and I think I feel somewhat contrary, I guess, also of like the way that, yeah, there is so much pressure to behave in a certain way and to be a certain way, and I think I just feel a certain level of contrariness of like just not being willing to play that game in the way that I've maybe like I can see is desired, you know, but
Yeah.
I just feel very contrary, I guess, and just feel like I feel like I'm giving myself way too much credit. Like this isn't that important, but it's just like subtle ways of, I feel like I'm just trying to exist differently in subtle ways.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
I appreciate that you're being contrary, and this might be the most you've been accepted on some level. Like that's
it's interesting.
fascinating.
Yeah.
People are
Yeah.
maybe people are picking up on your rebellion, but it's resonating with them, or something. I don't know. That's an
It's weird. Yeah. Well, but it's interesting because I was having a memory of like in like 2007, like I got asked to play North by Northeast, you know,
Yeah.
and this was a huge, you know, it's a big deal at the time in my mind. And this like music industry guy in Toronto, you know, zeroed in on my music and was like, wanted to like sign me and wanted to do the thing. He wanted to manage me based on the few songs I'd put up on MySpace. And it was really interesting because like I kind of like worked a little bit with this guy for a couple months, and then when it came time to sign the contract, like I bailed. Like I was like, no, and I walked away, and no one understood why, and I didn't even understand why. But I feel so grateful to my very young self that I did that, because it was just the right decision. Because if I'd done that and like this guy had like molded me, you know, as a young obedient person, I never would have wound up here.
Yeah.
Like in a million years.
Right.
And it feels so much better to be like 36 and kind of a bit contrary and just doing my strange thing my strange way than it would have to, you know, be molded by that guy.
Yeah, it seems like you've always had this independent streak, is what you're saying, on some level.
Well, I don't think so. I think I'm a very like obedient person. I feel like I'm too, you know, when I think of many people I've known in music who are way more independent than me, it feels like something hard won.
Well,
for me.
yeah, that's fair. But I mean, it seems to me that you've been embraced by a music community in Canada, in Toronto, in Canada, and that speaks to your spirit and your talent. I mean, I think people wanted you to be a part of things and wanted to be a part of your thing. So, I mean, it's a testament to you, perhaps. I mean, all this to say, I'm very happy for you, and I think this is all very well deserved. And those of us who have been sort of fans and followers, like, don't get it twisted. Like, this is great. It's very exciting. It's very exciting. Like I've been, you know, I follow you on the socials and stuff like that. And I was before this record came out. So I kind of knew, I knew what was kind of on your mind, and I appreciated the things you were speaking out about. And then to have this happen to your record and to you, you know, on some level, the stillness is a gift, because like I said, if this were happening and these were normal times, your life would be perhaps pure mania, you know, like of just go and demands. And I mean, it sounds like you still have some of that, but you're also at your house. So
yeah, it's all very esoteric. Like it's like, and then I make dinner, and
yeah,
you know, yeah,
yeah. Oh, the Guardian wrote a story about me, or the New York Times. Big deal. I got to make a salad. Yeah. Now I got to make a salad. Yeah. Do you?
But I think that's the way it always is, actually.
Yeah, probably. But like I say, you might be in Belgium getting this news, or somewhere.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. It's maybe less surreal because you're just home. I imagine.
Yeah,
anyway,
totally.
I'm just speculating. You can tell us, but I do want to strike upon one thing, because I don't know if this is a coincidence, but you, with ignorance, I think, I don't think this is arguable, a sonic departure. I hate using terms like that, but you have explored a new sound. Is that fair with this record compared to past Weather Station releases? I know it's fair because I know the other
that's
records.
Very fair. Yeah.
So does that strike, and the fact that it's resonated this way, is that a coincidence that you sort of, got away from more, traditional folk or rock instrumentation and explored, I guess, dancier, synthesized tones, more piano? Is it a coincidence, do you think, on some level, that this has resonated this way? Like, were people just aching to be moved more physically by your music or whatnot? I'm stereotyping, but do you think there's something to this?
I don't think it's a coincidence.
No? Okay.
Yeah, of course. Like, I know, that the sound, I recognize that, like, most of my records have, like, just like from a sonic perspective, like from an EQ perspective, like they sound a little odd, which is like my taste. Like I've been the person, like the reason, like all of it was mine. For example, we recorded on an 8-track in Dan's basement, and then, Dan wanted to use this like mixing guy who, put reverb on everything and made it really polished. And I was like, no, like it can't, like it has to just be what it is.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even want you to mix it. Just bring it back to what it was and put a bit of compressor on the guitars. And like, that's it. Like, so, like that's a strange, if you, it's for modern music. I've often made records that are like slightly strange sonically. And this one is strange sonically too, but it's like, yeah, it's definitely like the way that like it sonically, like I remember hearing like a song from the Self-Titled like on the radio once, like in a cab, and I was like, oh, this is so strange, like in the context of the radio in a cab. I was like, oh, I understand like that this record is odd, like it's a very odd record. And so, obviously this record like works sonically in the realm of modern music, just like the way that the bass is and like the way that the high end is and the way that like, yeah. And I knew I was doing that. But I think too that like I did think a lot about what the purpose of music is and what I was like actively seeking this thing of like not universal music, because obviously it's still very personal and the lyrics are pretty odd in a lot of ways, but like
yeah
I was thinking a lot about like eternal songs, like I was thinking about like Christine McVie, and like people who write in this way that's so open that like the guy who, drives like the delivery van and like, can love the same song that I can love, and obviously this record is not necessarily that, but I was just thinking like what's so interesting about popular music is the way that it crosses borders, and it's like a Trojan horse, like it gets into people in this way. And I find that kind of interesting of like, well, what do you say with that then? Like if you accept that music might be powerful and you like actually harness that power instead of like running away from it, as I feel like maybe I was, not in a bad way, but like, then what could you do if you harness that power and like rode that wave? And so that was what I was thinking, was like, wouldn't it be interesting if I just like accepted that power and like worked with it instead of making these sort of like scratchy, dynamic records.
Scratchy and dynamic. Yes, that's fair.
Well, that's like, if I didn't know myself and I just heard myself on the radio, I'd be like, why is this what is this,
Well, and
if I was a stranger, like if I wasn't me, and I think I was just trying to be a little less like caught up in myself in terms of like the mix, though I still was pretty annoying about the mix.
Well, it's a very lush sounding record, and I don't mean to be reductive about this, but I do feel like this falls within your record falls and your trajectory maybe falls within a bit of a tradition of folk artist becomes kind of more of a rock artist, but then
everybody did it, yeah.
Right, but there's also now this new, I think, relatively new thing where folk artist becomes rock artist, becomes electronic oriented artist. Like, I mean, Wilco caught a lot of flack as they evolved for going in that, adding more synthesized tones. Sufjan Stevens, when I first saw him play in 2000, he was a guy with a banjo. And, by last time I saw him perform live at Massey Hall, it was like, that Age of Odds record, and it was like a dance party almost.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know if these things are, I do think when an artist makes a record, particularly when they're well into their trajectory, in some ways that current record is a response to maybe a past record or a past way of doing things, because you've learned so much. You've accrued so much knowledge and experience.
For sure, yeah.
So I wondered also because I saw you do a set of, I think, a bunch of these songs.
This music, yeah.
At Sappy Fest. Yeah. And it was striking. You had a huge band and it was a different sound. And so it sounds to me like that maybe was swimming around. You heard a song of yours and thought, whoa, that's weird. And that some of that knowledge and experience pushed you to try to challenge yourself even more. Is that maybe where we're landing?
I mean, it's it didn't really feel like a choice, like in some ways. Like in some ways it felt like an artistic choice. In some ways I was just like, I just couldn't make another record that was like neurotically focused on lyrics and performance and my own voice, and guitar specifically. Like I had been playing guitar live and I'm just not a great guitar. Like I can accompany myself and I can play guitar in my strange ways that I play it, and I think that's cool, but it's just not comfortable as an instrument, and I just felt like I was at the end of a road, and there was nowhere to turn. Like, it's like you're turning around and you're like, well, I've done that and I've done that and I've said that and I've said that. And so you see a new road and you just start walking down it. And yeah, for sure, like touring as much as I did on the self-titled really informed this record, because I kept feeling like, I mean, I really just noticed that, when you're playing at a festival for a big crowd, like what people need from you, what the purpose of communal music is so different than the purpose of headphone music, right? Like, yeah. What I want when I put on headphones and I have this intimate connection with someone singing to me is so different than a group of people who feel this, like, you look out at the crowd and everyone feels this like anxiety, like there's this tension and strangeness of like, people don't know how to exist in a crowd. And when you see a band that knows what to do with that energy, like something else is created out of that. And so I think part of it was me sort of trying to marry these two things together in one record, right? Like of giving like a nod to like communal music, specifically rhythm. Rhythm is so powerful and it's so human, and it works on me as much as it works on anyone else. And then also to have like the headphone intimacy in the vocals and the lyrics and certain like touches, and like, yeah, I thought of it as like a building with like, a foundation and a top structure that was different, and I was like, what if those two things were in one music? And honestly, it just felt so freeing to like let go of like these sort of like, pieties, I guess, of like lo-fi, there's guitar music and folk music and all this stuff. And I think that's probably part of why all these people have done it, because it's like you don't want to, I mean, some people can be like the genre purists that are like, punk for life.
Right.
But yeah, there's something, I'm giving you a very long answer, but I mean, it's funny because since I've made this record and since all this time has gone by, like I feel like I can finally listen to folk music again, and I can finally write soft songs again. It's just like it just wasn't what I could do then.
Well, that's that's the other side of that trajectory. Is usually the folk artist becomes the rock artist. Yeah, they go back. They get something out of their system a little bit, and they experience the bombast of like, my solo stage show is now featuring 10 people or 11 people, and I'm going to take it on the road. And then when they have that experience or whatever, they've done it, and then next thing you know, they're putting out a solo guitar record or something.
Yeah,
you know?
Totally.
So that it sounds like that's germinating already a little bit, maybe, perhaps.
Well, it's funny. Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that Sappy Fest show, because like it was interesting because I actually like felt like I love Sappy Fest, and it was this like crazy desire I had to do this and put on this big show, but it was actually a learning experience for me where I was like, this isn't right actually. Like the way that I tour this record has to be like really thoughtful, and it was in part the sound, but yeah, it was interesting. I just felt like, this isn't right, and I actually need to I haven't found it yet of like how I would play this music. And I think figured it out, though we haven't been able to play a show, but we're doing like a live stream show, and it's been really interesting to rehearse it and find a way through it. Yeah.
We've talked a lot about the music and maybe even the recording approach for this record, but I understand that you also maybe took on a different approach to lyrics, lyric writing. Is that right? Did you do something a bit different this time around?
I mean,
in your practice, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. Like, I don't know. It's a lot more blunt, I think, and a little less like intellectual.
Well,
it's more emotional.
Is it more instinctual? Like, is it less fussed over on any level? Like, were you like first thought might be the best thought more so on this record?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting though, because like all of it was mine. Was totally like first thought. Like I did not think, like I just wrote those songs, and honestly, that was like kind of the worst thing that could have happened to me, because I wrote those songs and then like a year later I was like, how did I do that? Like I don't remember writing them. Like I don't remember what I was thinking, and like I still think they're kind of the best songs I ever wrote, and I don't know how I did it, and it sucks. Like I had a whole like several years of like, you do something instinctually and then you have to figure out how to do it when your mind is turned on, and it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
But I think I've like reached a state of grace, maybe even since the record was written, of like being able to know the instinct and to also like apply the critical thought, but it's like the marriage of those two things is the most difficult thing. And it's why writing lyrics is so hard, because often the first thought is this magical thing, but then you have to like connect the dots, and how do you know which dots are the important ones? You know, when you're I mean, I shouldn't have even said that out loud, that I've reached a state of grace, because that's like basically the death knell. I'm probably gonna not be able to write again, but no, it's really hard. I think I guess what I would describe is like I a lot of the lyrics on the album feel like unfinished to me, but I did like make an active decision to keep it that way, because I felt like that was right, you know, for the record, to leave it that unfinished and unpolished.
This might be a weird question.
I think it was right. Yeah.
This might be a weird question. Do you feel they were unfinished, or do you feel like externally people might view them as unfinished? Do you know the distinction I'm making? Like, you clearly were happy enough with them that we have this record now, but I hear that insecurity or that self-doubt because you know that you're making something that's going to be consumed publicly. And I wrestle with that all the time, where like, I was happy with it, then I put it out, and then people said stuff, and suddenly my opinion of a thing that I was totally fine with has changed. what is wrong with me? Why did that public reaction have such sway over me? I'm not saying you've received, any criticism over writing, unfinished lyrics here, but do you know what I mean? There's a dual pressure when you're a public person like yourself, and being so giving of your mind and feelings. So I just wonder if that's swimming around in there.
No, like, to be honest, it's like the opposite.
Oh.
Like, I feel like I know the ways in which I left them as they were, even though my instinct would be to prune everything and make it more philosophical. You know what I mean? And I kind of left it that way because I was like, well, there's some things that I have to leave this blunt and this emotional, or else it just is not right. And so my feeling is like, it's interesting how people are experiencing the record, and the openness of like the gaps that are there are helpful, I think, for the way that other people experience the record.
Yeah.
But I'm just like a really I mean, that is an interesting thing about lyrics, because I am just really critical, and like I think a lot about them, and I don't like what I feel in myself is like I only have a couple songs that I've written that I can't find fault with, and everything else I just can. But I think I've come to a state of like being like, this is the fault of this song, but is that actually important? You know what I mean? Because sometimes it is. Sometimes the fault of it is the beautiful part, like it's like the the distortion in the guitar. It's like sometimes you have to keep that,
I dig what you're saying, but do you also, I mean, given your kind of I don't want to call it fearless, but the fact that you decided to take a new approach with making this record in terms of how it sounds, do you not maybe subscribe to a theory that a song that you write is potentially never done? Like, I mean, on some level, we get really married to albums as this, defining document of what a song is. And when people perform their songs and they change them, some of us get very angry. I don't. But some people get very angry that the song has been modified lyrically, sonically, arrangement-wise, which I'm like, well, what's the point of going to a live show? I mean, I like being surprised by the artist. So in that vein, and I'm not telling you your business, you're very successful. Who am I? But you could always, I think, you put your record out, that was the session. That's what happened. But you're not happy with something, you could always change it. You could always, when you're playing the song, you'd be like, you know what? Never did like that verse. I'm sick of it.
No,
Couldn't you do that? Don't you have the power to do that?
I do have the power. I'd have to talk to management. I'll send it up the chain. I'll see what. No, but you're right, and I don't know why it's never occurred to me to do that. But I think, because you do change it. I feel like there's a secret in between like the maker and the listener, and that's something I've thought a lot about. Like the way I see lyrics now in my old age, and like is like it's a relationship. It's a relationship between the words and the music, and then the words and the listener, and there's like gaps. Like there's always gaps. Lyrics are always leaving so much out. Like they're leaving out, it's like 3 little grains of rice on a plate. Like that's what lyrics are. Like there's so few words in a song. And what makes them beautiful is what the music brings to them, and then B, what people bring to them. And so the gaps are where there's space for people to enter them and like have, and I'm not like I always argue against like the thing of like lyrics don't have to like they don't matter, like they don't have to mean anything, like people just interpret them. Like I really strongly disagree with that, but yeah, like to me, I guess what I mean is like I think that if I'd been in a different headspace when I was writing the album, it would have been very different, and I wouldn't have let it be. By unfinished, I just mean like unvarnished in a way.
I appreciate
like,
that.
Yeah.
I
But I don't
that.
mean that like, Yeah, it's just like it's just very blunt, and like I don't think I would have been that blunt if I had had a choice in a way. Like I think I would have been way more like intellectual about it. But I'm glad that it's there. Like this album feels very like it feels like it's like a second puberty, you know? Like it's sort of like it feels almost teenage to me, and not like teenagehood, but just like when you break through another skin, there's like
coming
an
of
ugliness,
age, coming of age kind of thing. Yeah.
And
yeah.
I think those things happen over and over again in our lives.
Yeah.
So the way that it's a bit emo, I think is like correct for it, you know?
I see.
Even if I can like, even if I can find fault with it, because it's like I can find fault with everything.
It seems to me when you say unfinished now that you've sort of expanded upon it, I think maybe you're just a little bit like, wow, it was pretty raw. There's like a sensitivity to the lyrics that doesn't feel like, it feels like you've conveyed feelings and thoughts, but maybe not as fully as you could have. But that's fine
totally.
too, because that's the enigma. The only thing I'll say about this is, as a fan, like I totally appreciate what you're saying about the relationship between an artist, a song, and the listener, and particularly in a live setting. Like, there's a certain amount of comfort in knowing the words that are coming to a song.
Totally.
If you love the song, I get that. But I also know that if I've seen Bob Dylan or Shellac and they've totally changed the words, I mean, we make a big deal when someone forgets the words and doesn't have something to come up with to replace. I've seen that, and it can be awkward. But I've seen Dylan, you know, a 50-year-old song, he's added a new verse. And we all look at each other like, wait, what's going on now? Or he's changed the pronouns. It's just those little things. And you're like, wait a second, song's totally different. So that's exhilarating to see it live after living with us. Anyway, these songs are young, and your songs are all pretty young. And I, again, not suggesting anything untoward or getting into your business here, but, you know, I want you to feel like freedom. You should as an artist feel like I can say, I didn't like it. I didn't like what I said back then. But I like the rest of it. So I might just change. I feel like all artists should feel like that. Like, I can change this.
I agree with that. And I think too, like, even though, I too have had the experience of seeing Bob Dylan, you know, just change it. You're like, what? But, you know, I actually kind of love that as an artist. I love it because I'm like, it makes me feel less alone in just, I think it's just interesting because it's an interesting document of like, you learn something of like, that's where he is now. This is what he chose to change, and he didn't change this. And that's kind of interesting. And I actually really like the blood on the tracks, like more blood, more tracks, like all the stuff of like, you hear him changing verses and changing instrumentation. And it's kind of interesting because some of the songs, like, I prefer the alternative version, or in some cases, I think both are just equally good. And I kind of like that. And I think it's a lesson for like the listener of like, actually there's so many ways that a song can exist, and like it you know, it could have been this or it could have been that. Yeah.
I think part of when we as fans relate to an artist, we are doing a little bit of living vicariously through them. And I think they stand, for some of us, artists stand for a kind of freedom that we don't feel we have. So when you see them even push that further, like I had the audacity to think that I could make something of myself by writing my own songs and playing my own instrument. And then they have their career, and then they even push it further. That's kind of where I'm coming from with it. And I don't want to dwell on it too much, because I feel like, in a sense, that's kind of what you've done with this album, frankly. Like, I'm sure you maybe aren't aware of it. I'm not aware of it, but I'm sure there are some weather station purists, you know, the Puritans being like, wait a second, this doesn't sound like the weather station. And that's, I don't know if that's happened, but I'm sure there is. There always seems to be.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Like that tension from particularly folk and rock Puritans, that something has changed to be more contemporary, and they don't like it. And so all I'm saying is I appreciate that you have done what you're doing, are doing what you're doing is what I should say. So that's all. That's all I want to say. In terms of the lyrics, there's been a particular focus in the press, and I think you've acknowledged it as well. The lyrics seem to be delving into ecological collapse, our collective condition. Is that accurate? Has that been overblown in any way, or is that a central theme here?
No, it is accurate. I mean, it is what I was writing about, and it is a funny thing because like I didn't necessarily think I would say that, you know, like because I was like the songs all work if you imagine them as, you know, relationship songs. But I wasn't writing them as relationship songs. Like I was writing them as being these broader things that I was seeing, that I was feeling very personally, you know, like,
yeah.
And that was my experience. But it is interesting how that is the part of, you know, the press release that people have seized on. And it's a bit overwhelming because I'm like, oh no, I hope I'm not doing a bad job of talking about this. And like, God, this is a lot of pressure. But yeah, it is honestly what I was thinking about and what I was feeling. And that's just where I was. Like when I wrote the record, I was in this really weird rabbit hole of climate feelings and trying to be some kind of climate activist and just like...
Some kind. You are. I feel like you are.
Yeah. But I mean, like some people are like, you know, like have like formed a organization or like done something real, you know, like I know a lot of musicians who are like way more full-time activists than me, but yeah, it was just a really disorienting experience, and I think that's part of what, like, why I characterize the album as being like kind of teenage, you know, like because it's like it did feel like this different identity and this different way of seeing the world that I felt like that teenager who's like, why is everything so fucked? Like, you know, you feel like the moment you like really pay attention to that, the reality of climate, like you just feel so angry, and it's so hard to like know what to do with that feeling. Anyways, yeah, it's a funny thing. I mean, yeah,
it's funny that people sort of latched on to that as the central. This sort of maybe, I don't know if that's where you were going with it necessarily, but before I delve into that anger a little bit and the broader topic, is the record to you about things other than that? Are there things again, by this point, press cycle is, you know, I think actually still in full swing. So people have opined about the record, they've reviewed the record, all these sorts of things. Has anyone missed something that you're talking about? Because you do frame a lot of the songs about the earth and environmental collapse as in a relationship dynamic on some level. So I just wonder, are there other things that you're surprised we haven't picked up on, so to speak?
No, I mean, it feels... I haven't like read the reviews, so I don't really know, but I know from like, you know, just sort of like bits and pieces. But yeah, I think it's pretty accurate. I think I wasn't trying to like make a record that like, you know, fills anybody in on the, you know, the science or anything. But I think that a lot of it was coming from like anger at how my generation has kind of been like gaslit about this, you know, and like, and sort of like lied to and misled and betrayed, like just profoundly betrayed. And I think that's like a really big emotional heart of the record that people probably don't quite catch, but that's like trust. And like all of these songs, that's what I was singing about, was like the blatant betrayal of like almost everyone in power, you know, of my generation and the younger generation, you know, like where it's just like time and time and time again, people who have attained the power that it takes have, you know, just bailed and over and over again. And that's a funny feeling, you know, and I'm not saying I'm any better, but it's just like, it's intense. Yeah.
Well, and I think the deliberate obliviousness to the issue. I mean,
Yeah.
even just when you scan the titles, like tried to tell you, trust, separated, there's a sense that a line has been drawn between fact and fiction, among other things. I mean, that's what I think of a lot. Well, that's what we've actually
Yeah.
come to recognize the climate change situation as. This, it's just another example of the polarity this sort of misguided, strange polarity we're in, where we can't agree on something that's in front of our faces. And I mean,
Yeah.
I assume when you call a record ignorance, you're kind of speaking to that, the
Yeah.
way people are educated, the way they process information about something that's so, to some of us, so plainly obvious. They obfuscate what's going on. For what? We don't even, I guess, personal gain, wealth, what is it? Just status quo stuff. That's all swimming around in the title, I assume.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, like, honestly, like, I'm implicating myself too in the title and in the record, where it's like, I don't think it's just ignorance. I think it's like I mean, my brain just starts exploding when I hear that word, and when I think about it, where it's like I go down a whole rabbit hole of just like acknowledging that the culture I grew up in is a culture, like
Yeah.
Western, white, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant culture is a culture. It's just like one way of seeing the world and being human. And though I think I'm my own person, I have been shaped by this culture, and I can see the cracks in it, but one of the biggest cracks in this culture is just like a structuralized ignorance. Like, it's like we choose not to see the reality of so many things, and that comes from like what does it mean to be a white Canadian,
Yeah.
that's something that we choose to be ignorant about, and
Yeah.
and it's not that I'm ignorant, I'm educated, but I just think a lot about like this entire country was literally founded on these guys, sailing across the ocean, thinking they were going to China,
Yeah.
thinking they had arrived in China, and then being like, what the fuck's this shitty place? It's not China. Like, fuck this place. Oh, wait, there are people here? Like, we don't give a shit. Like,
Yeah.
it's just like, it's not just ignorance. It's like willed ignorance.
Yeah,
it's
willful.
like, we're not
Yeah.
gonna we just discovered a continent that we didn't know was here, but instead we're gonna believe that it belongs to us and we deserve it and we know what it's good for and it's good for this and not this. And all of these like rigid ways of thinking are just so ingrained in our culture. So
Yeah.
I guess like I draw a pretty clear line of that to like, yeah, it's a good idea to destroy like the planet literally for no reason, like no one is going to win out of this. Like no one will win. And for what? Anyways.
Okay.
I
So
could talk about
it
this
sounds
all
like
day.
Well,
You're like,
it,
"Maybe we
it
should
sounds
wrap
like
this
that. No. I was just going to say, I feel like, so there are other things potentially,
Mm-hmm.
maybe more abstractly, but there are other things informing this concept of ignorance. It sounds like to me, like, like I said, the consensus seems to be that, Tam's made a climate change record, but
Mm-hmm.
you're saying that debate, those kinds of arguments, that sort of information processing is informed by other aspects of how we've lived ignorantly. And I find this interesting because I think of climate change as a very serious health concern, among other things. Like this is a health and well-being issue that is somehow, the science is being questioned, it's up for debate. And so you write these songs, the record is prepared for release, and then there's a pandemic. And we see how people are reacting to almost the exact, it's on a deeper cellular level, on some level. It's arguably it's the same sort of peril. But what did you make of that? Like, as you saw discourse about the pandemic start to unfold, I don't know about you, but I saw the same. I did see a parallel between our so-called debate around climate change and the debate around how to deal with this pandemic and how serious it was, and where's how science and government had to work together, science and popular opinion had to work together. Did you see those parallels? Did you think about this?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's interesting because like I wasn't in like early March and February, I wasn't paying any attention to the coronavirus news because that was the time where, I mean, there was the blockade across Canada.
Yes.
And then there was the Teck mine. I'm sure living in Alberta, you probably heard about that.
Yep.
Although I guess maybe you weren't there yet. But that mine was like, it was absurd. Like it was like going to use like a third of the remaining carbon budget, like one mine, over the course of its planned lifetime. And this was like our liberal government was, I probably shouldn't be, you're in Alberta, I probably shouldn't talk about this. Anyways, our liberal government was all set.
This podcast,
like
it's not an Alberta podcast. I just want to be clear. We can talk about whatever you like. Yeah.
Anyways, our government was happy to go ahead. They were going for it. And this is like the liberal government that was elected to fight climate change. So, you know, my blood was already kind of boiling, to be honest. And luckily the Teck mine was canceled, but not because of our government, because of, I can't remember, like a financing fell apart.
Yeah, that's right.
Because of the climate risk, which is like when the big banks are like your moral compass, like that's pretty problematic. But anyways, I was already very angry about that. And I was following that. I wasn't even paying attention to COVID. And then when COVID hit, and like, I actually found it to be a very profound experience of like those first couple weeks when like this same government that was literally putting not just me at risk, but like the next generation and like hundreds of millions of people all over the planet at risk with this mine, was like taking every evasive action to protect the lives of people, you know? And I was like, what? Like it actually like really affected me, where I was like, I haven't experienced this, where like I see people in power in my government like wanting to protect my life and, you know, my mother's life and the life of elderly people, and you know, and everybody pulled together in that moment. And I found it very profound, but also very, like I say, I was almost kind of angry of just like, wait, we can do this? Like, so you're saying we can upend society to save lives, but you've been telling us this whole time that like, you know, making the slightest adjustment to like not end the world wasn't possible. So like there was a bit of anger of like, and I did have some pretty negative feelings of like, is this generational? Is this because, you know, the people in government are, you know, many of them are over 60 and they feel personally threatened, and so they're able to make a move in a way that they're not for like their children, you know? And that's my like very negative feelings that I felt about that. But, you know, long view, a year later, I definitely think that COVID, you know, my optimistic view is that we've now had this experience of like something threatened us existentially, and we all agreed, not all of us.
No, we didn't.
Many of us agreed.
That's my
many
point.
of us agreed that we needed to do something, and we did. You know, like even though it's been very fractured, like I would say that the overall, like the response has been robust, at least, even though it's been a failure in other ways, like for sure, you know. And I think everyone sees that like, damn, if we could just like lock down better, we could actually get rid of this thing instead of like opening up Walmart, you know, like it feels like people are generally on the same side. And so I do have an optimistic hope that has led to like, you know, climate action is moving forward way more now than it was, you know, before the pandemic. So there is a little glimmer of hope, even though you could also make the argument that the response to COVID has been a mess, and like, you know, people haven't been united, and like, you know, you could make both arguments. But to me, even just the fact of like, we all like obey, you know, we all did this, you know, and yeah, there were a few people who didn't follow the rules, but most people did, and most people continue to, and that's pretty wild.
Yeah, but
at great personal risk and cost, you know, like, and I don't, I mean, I guess I also think too, like, compared to this, maybe climate, maybe like having to get on board with, electric cars being a thing at some point in the future will seem like way less of an imposition than like you literally can't hug your friends for like a year, It's like compared to this, like climate action is not really that big a deal.
I appreciate your optimism. I don't quite have it based on the behavior I've seen. I'm sorry. Like I'm more
well, you
like,
live in Alberta, yeah.
I live in Alberta, yeah, but I also, yes, that's actually probably a major reason why. But I think even you in Ontario have had sort of uneven leadership on,
for sure,
on this in terms of COVID. But I do see a parallel between how people in power in particular discuss the supposed nuances of dealing with something like climate change or the pandemic, where it's just so bald-faced, like economic, infrastructural impulse, like the impulse is to protect that over people. What do you want? You don't want there to be anything? Like, is that really how you want to live? And most of us are like, well, we want to live. So that you've got that part correct. But whether or not we can eat in a restaurant, I mean, again, full respect and appreciation for all of these industries that are suffering, but this is a calamity. And similarly, climate change is a calamity. So I've seen the pandemic as a microcosm of what it will actually, when climate change, like to me and to you, I think climate change is in our face every day. But this pandemic has sort of accelerated. It's been an accelerated crisis, and we've seen how people reacted to something that's urgent and immediate in their faces, impacting them and their communities in a very real way, and you still have that fracture. So when climate change starts to move more inland, and again, I think it already is doing this, but it's so incremental on some level that people don't take it seriously, I guess, or, Texas is covered in snow for the first time in decades. Well, that's not... whatever, that's not a big deal. It'll go away, because they assume it'll go away. And I think that's been the same attitude I've seen in the pandemic. It'll eventually, that's what the American former president's like, it'll go away. Don't worry, which is what people say about climate change. It'll go away.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm struggling with being optimistic about, you say, I'm in Alberta. I also have children. So I'm always trying to, and I was a big Wayne Gretzky fan. So I always try to anticipate. His whole thing was like, go where the where the puck is gonna go. Yeah. So I'm very much like that. I'm like, well, where is this leading us? And all I'm saying is this past year has been frightening in terms of human behavior and an acknowledgement of science. Because when you say ignorance in terms of a record title, I'm sorry, but I think of science.
For sure.
I think of logic. Like the opposite of it is logic and science and facts and being informed. So I'm on a rant. You did invoke hope, and so I'm going to segue from that into your. I am going to segue from your invocation of hope to your acting a little bit. That's a little pun. That's a little pun for those in the know who maybe heard you on this show. And when I had the revelation that you had an acting career, and I didn't really know about it. Anyway, I didn't really know. Like our friend Colin Medley was like, "You didn't know?" I'm like, "I didn't know. I don't track everything that Tams does and did. I don't know. I thought you were the weather station. I didn't. What am I supposed to? I'm not a private investigator. I'm a podcast journalist. I guess they can be similar. My point here is this: the videos. I've really enjoyed your videos. I was just so blown away by the videos you've been making for this record. There seem to be a lot of them now. The last I looked, the first one arguably might be the most elaborate one for Robber, and I loved it. Just congratulations on that. So first of all, what is your and then the other ones I've seen, a mix of total one shot kind of deal and also more movement. What is your sort of aesthetic choice situation with these videos? Like, is there an overarching kind of theme or concept there?
Yeah, I mean, I think the only outlier is the parking lot video. But the other three, like, I did have all these like concepts. I had like a sheet of like concepts that I wanted the videos to embody. Like I had like a a guiding principles for myself. And yeah, and among them were like positioning human beings in nature, so to remind us that we are natural, you know, and we're a part of our world, and but not to have that be like acknowledged, like people aren't looking around them, you know, like which is I think true to life. And I think like the use of like surrealness, like the camera makes surreal things look ordinary and ordinary things look surreal. Like I realized that. And then I was like, that's really interesting. And I wanted to have just these surreal elements in everything, and to have like intention and purpose behind all of the images. Because I think music videos traditionally are just, you know, beautiful images. Yeah. And I just thought like, what a waste, you know, this is something that will exist in the world. Like, what can I say with it? And how can I, you know, obviously like relate back to the song, but also just say a new thing perhaps even with it. And yeah, in some cases, like I felt like Tried to Tell You was just like a literal representation of the song, you know, like a literal representation of the metaphorical song, person, character. Yeah, I mean, my only regret is just like I wish that like the robber video was so hard that it just like it just was worn out.
Right.
By the time I got to the parking lot video, but at the same time, the parking lot video, like I think is actually like the right video for that song, you know, because it just I feel like it brings the like bittersweetness of that song to life in this way that just the song doesn't always have, you know. So
the parking lot video is quite lovely. For those who haven't seen it, it's Tamsin. I guess, is it a field? You're dancing. You're kind of walking away from a camera, which you know, my film studies hat comes on, and you know, a camera is following you, and your back is to it, and you're lip syncing, I suppose, or singing, and we only get a sense of that when your head turns to the side, and then by the midpoint, you are back at the camera and then sort of swirling around and dancing. And, you know, you mentioned the surreal parts, and I often, and this is no offense to you or anyone else, but I often think if aliens came upon our music video library on Earth, they would be quite confused. These people spend a day or days just pretending to sing. What is going on? Why are they doing this? Why are they doing this?
Really
why don't
funny.
Why don't they just sing? Why? And then they'll see Top of the Pops and be like, wait a minute, they have their instruments with them and they're still pretending to sing. What is going on? Anyway, not to disparage music videos, but it did strike me that your approach to lip syncing was quite striking, because in the parking lot video in particular, and in the robber video, for those who haven't seen them, Tams, you will start to lip sync and then you'll stop. You'll stop.
Yeah.
You'll stop the lip syncing as the lyrics and the song is continuing, and we hear your voice. But you've opted, I think, for dramatic effect and whatnot, to stop all of a sudden, which that I found striking. I can't think of too many people. People have made fun of lip syncing with music videos before and tried to, you know, just the falseness of it. Usually in amusing ways, but in your case, it's very dramatic, if I might say. It's almost unnerving to see someone lip syncing, and you know, the voice we hear is synced with it, and then you stop physically moving your mouth. And I don't have a real, an argument about this, if you will. Can you just explain that? Because it happens in at least two videos that I've seen, and it struck me as a very interesting sort of meta move. What is what prompted that as a way of approaching lip syncing?
Yeah, I mean, like you, I've always thought the lip syncing in videos is odd, you know, and strange, but at the same time, like, it also works on me, because there is something powerful about it's just like an overwhelming rush. You know, like, you feel the music, you see the person singing it, you know, it's the perfect recording from the album. So, you know, it's like all these things combined. But I mean, it's funny because the reason why I started doing that was in the robber video, I was thinking of it more as like, it's dialogue, right? Like,
Yes.
Like I'm saying I never believed in the robber, and then I'm like, wait a second, or do I? Like that was how I thought of it, of like that character.
Yeah, your
It's like
eyes and your
questioning
face.
in
Yeah.
the moment, like whether they believe what they just said, which is like very true to the song. And then like the second time I say I never believed in the robber, it's like in response to an interview.
Yes.
So that was like, I just was trying to work it in as like dialogue in the song.
I hope I'm not reading.
And,
I hope I'm not reading too much into
yeah.
this by asking this. But
No, you're not.
Okay.
No, but I did think about it, and then in the other songs, I mean, like obviously, like in the Tried video, like I just show up to say the things that person, you know, whatever I was in that video, I'm kind of like the psyche or like the conscience, you know, like a mystical figure
Yeah.
appearing to just say I tried to tell you, you know, and just sing the bridge, and that was sort of deliberate of like these are the words that this person says, so I have to say them here, and then in the Atlantic and Parking Lot, I think it was just sort of like, if I just sing the parts that speak to me in the moment and not the others, it feels more real and more true to the artifice of it, you know? And yeah, but I agree. Like I liked that choice. I was like, because it is so unnerving when the person stops. You're like, wait, that's not supposed to happen.
Am I the only one who's fixating on this one detail? Has anyone else brought this to your attention?
Actually, no, and I'm glad you fixated on it, because I thought it was like I thought it was a bold move, and not many people mentioned it, you know?
Well, I was trying to sort of facetiously mention your acting background, but to me, it's real acting to do that. Because particularly because the shots in Robber, for example, are so tight, your face and your eyes have to convey. It's weird. Your face and your eyes convey the words you don't lip sync, I guess is what I'm saying. You talk about it being like pondering and thinking about what you're saying. And that's a very ruminative sort of thing to say, I never believed in the robber, because you're transporting yourself back to a past of yours, whether it's your youth or what have you. I never believed in the robber. So you're processing. Anyway, look at me. What is going on right now? I am trying to do a reading of your video, and I'm sorry.
No, it's great. This is like, that's what I want people to experience it like, right? Like I didn't make, like, I made it weird. You know, I wanted people to turn wheels, you know, like that's the point of it.
Mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished. But,
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, like, I don't know, I made a video a couple years ago where like I didn't lip sync the song. Like it's like a close up of me, and then there's like intercut other footage, and I think I thought that I would lip sync the song, and then when I was like going to do it, I was like, wait a second, no, like I'll just get them to play the song, and I'll just think the song in my head, and I'll see if it comes across. And it kind of does. Like I don't lip sync in the video, but it's like, it's strange because I'm just thinking. I'm thinking about the lyrics, and it like, it flows. So maybe that's where that came from also. Yeah.
Well, it's all very fascinating, this outpouring of work from you, and we need it. So I congratulate you and thank you again for doing this and being the weather station and constantly progressing and evolving. It's great to see. I want to give you an opportunity to talk about a couple of things. First of all, I suppose, I know this is a hard question these days. What's next? You know, you've made the record. There's not going to be any touring on the horizon. I saw on Instagram today, I think, that you've got some sort of live stream event planned. Do you want to talk about that and any other plans you have at the moment?
Yeah. Well, I do want to talk about that because I need to sell tickets to it. It is, you know, just rolling up to the local club and putting on a show is a lot easier than making a live stream show.
Yes.
It's it's gonna be crazy. It's like, it's the album band plus extra people. It's like, it's a 10-piece band. We're doing it out of a really nice studio in Toronto, so it's gonna sound really good. And then, you know, I've got this beautiful lighting director, and you know, it's basically like we're basically presenting our own show on our own terms, which is kind of cool in a way.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's just, it's just been, I finally got a chance to rehearse with the band, and we all felt like we were high. Like we were just so overwhelmed by the joy of being in a room, even though we were all wearing masks and everything. But this band they're just so good. Like I felt like, you know, singing with this band, like I just feel like I don't even care about cars, but it's like I just feel like I just got into a luxury car and I'm just being driven somewhere because I don't even have to lift a finger. Like they're just amazing. So it's really cool for me, and I just feel like I'm also excited about it too, because obviously like the focus is so on me, and I'm glad to have a chance to like showcase like this is the band, this is the music, you know, and it's like I say, it's sort of been this really big undertaking, and it's taken up a lot of my time. So I'm looking forward to it coming out.
And when is it?
It's March 11th is when it comes out.
Okay,
we actually
so
are March 11th. Yeah.
Okay. So you've got this thing. Is it going to be something where you have to watch it as it's happening, or can we watch it after even? Do you know what you're going to do with it once it's sort of obviously? That's the weird thing about this time is people spend all this time producing stuff, and they point people to a live streaming event. Often they're pre-recorded or they're captured, and then do we get to revisit this if we don't catch it the night or the day it airs?
It's up for 72 hours, so it's like 3 days. So you can watch it anytime, and it is pre-recorded. We cannot do everything, but it's gonna be, you know, we're not gonna like edit or anything. We're just gonna play. But yeah, it's up for 72 hours, and then, you know, I have thought that like it might, you know, basically if I don't make the money back. it might be a live album, you know. Let's just be real here, but I think it'll be fine. But yeah, it is a weird thing of like, like why not just have it up permanently if you're going to all this trouble of making it? But I still like the idea of like it being you know, I have watched some live streams and you know, Zoom events and things, and I do like having like an appointment, you know, like I like having something that you gotta catch. Yeah. Because, you know, and that maybe your friends are watching, you know, you can text with people, and like there is still something nice about something actually being transient, rather than, you know, that thing where you're like, oh, I'll check that out another day, you know, like I think it's a nice it's just like the one little approximation we have of the living moment. But of course, it's not the same as a show, but it'll be cool. No. Yeah, it'll be cool.
It sounds like it'll be cool. Now, you did hint at maybe at least listening to quieter, more folk-oriented music earlier. Are you writing? Have you been writing since you finished Ignorance? Is there like any kind of collection of songs that has accumulated in the last little while?
Yeah, like I actually made another album this past spring. So, but I haven't been talking about it too much. It does exist. I don't know what'll happen to it, but I did make. So most of this past year I was like kind of in that world and finishing that, and now I'm kind of like, okay, now what? I feel like I just started to have the space in my brain for like the next thing that's after the next thing. But I still haven't been really writing music. Most of the pandemic I haven't been writing music, but I've been writing a lot of words, and I've been writing, like, it sounds really dumb, but I've been writing kind of a book that's kind of a book. And that's been really interesting because sentences are really hard. It's hard to write. So yeah, it's I don't know like when or if I'll finish it or what I'll do, but I'm trying to finish it.
I'm starting to get the sense that we are experiencing a weather station takeover, a media takeover. Because you've got the acting career, you've got now music, you're conquering music videos, you're directing music videos, now a book. You know, what's next? Cooking show? What are you going to do?
Yeah, TV show.
I don't understand.
Late night show. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
No, that's
I might take over the world. Yeah.
You should. Yeah. You should. I think the world would be in a better spot. I appreciate that. Yeah. That's great. Well, is it like memoir-y, or is it just, what are you thinking at this point? Or do you even have a thought about it yet? It just sounds like it's in gestation or whatever.
No, like it's a very big Word file on the old computer.
Oh,
it's pretty
really
long.
developed.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just like like editing and organizing is hard. But
Is it
yeah.
done?
No, it's not done.
Oh,
It's not done.
okay.
Parts of it are
We'll
unwritten. Parts of it are written. Yeah.
We'll learn more about it and this
Someday.
record that you just
Yeah.
alluded to someday. Okay. I smell what you're cooking, if I
Yeah.
might say. I know what you're saying. Okay.
Cool.
If people want to learn more about the weather station, follow the weather station, if you will, in the parlance of our times, where would you like to direct them? Where would you like to direct them?
Theweatherstation.net.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know.
That's where everything is. You're on some socials as well.
Yes, I am on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
Okay, but the weatherstation.net for all your weather station needs. And the new album Ignorance is out on, is it Next Door Records in Canada and Fat Possum elsewhere? Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look at me. I know what I'm doing, sort of.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
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 If we can go out on a song from Ignorance, I'm wondering if you can pick one and maybe tell us why you might have chosen it. Is that possible?
Sure. How about Atlantic?
Atlantic. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's one of my favorites, just like sonically, in the way the band is and the way the music is. I love, like, it's very kind of divergent. Like it's sort of like chaotic in this cool way that I really love. And I love that it feels like, multiple things are kind of like pushing against each other. There's a lot of tension. I like the band on this one.
Is there anything particularly memorable about the recording of this song that sticks out for you? Anything that occurred?
No. Yeah, I mean, I think it was one of the songs like that. I wish I'd done this more with the band. Like, I wish I just let them flow, because they flowed on this song and a couple others, and they wound up being like by far my favorite recordings. So, but yeah, I mean, I think I liked that, like Christine Bougie playing guitar and Ryan Driver playing flute, like on this take, which is I think why we chose this take. Like they kept like chasing each other, like one of them plays a melody and the other like counters it, and it is just such a beautiful like little moment. And I liked that, and it's just a lovely testament of their beautiful instincts as musicians.
Great musicians that you've cited there, and excellent record, amazing song. Let's play it then. This is Atlantic by the Weather Station from the excellent new album Ignorance. Tams, it's always really fun to speak with you, and I will say I appreciate you making time to speak with me because you don't have to anymore. The world loves you, and I really do. I appreciate your loyalty, or whatever you want to call it. I just appreciate you appreciating me, and I thank you for this, and I wish you the best of luck with everything in the future.
Yeah, thank you. You too.
My God, skin. Pink clouds massing on the cliffs. Thinking, how can I touch this? How can I touch this softest petal, softest stem, softest leaf, bending green in my palm. Thinking I should get all this flying off of my mind. I should really know better than to read the headlines. Does it matter if I see? Oh, really? Can I not just cover my eyes? Oh, tell me, why can't I just cover my eyes?
Thank you very much to Tamara for returning to Creative Control. This fourth time, I believe, now on the show as the weather station. I think we did a proper interview. Then she was on the Long Night show, did a couple of songs, and then came back not too long ago. Well, maybe like 226 episodes ago. It's kind of a long time ago. Anyway, thank you, Tamara, and thank you to all of you weather station fans for being a part of the 600th episode of Creative Control, which is part of the Entertainment One podcast network and is available wherever you get your podcasts. If you can't find an episode you're looking for, or if you want to learn more about me and sign up for my monthly newsletter, please visit my website, vishkhanna.com. You can like Creative Control on Facebook, follow the show on Twitter at vishcreative, or follow me directly on Twitter and on Instagram at vishkhanna. Also visit patreon.com/Creative Control to make a flexible monthly donation to keep the podcast going. $6 or more grants you access to exclusive content, audio content from my archives. And if you're interested in receiving a Creative Control t-shirt, please message me on Patreon and I'll get you one while supplies last. And again, $6 or more, it gets you some extra stuff. Like I recently, as I'm speaking to you, I recently posted a 2011 interview I did with Mark Maron. Quite a long interview there. And also, somewhat recently, a 2008 interview with Mavis Staples. You get that on the Patreon. So $6 or more, access to stuff like that. Go to patreon.com/Creative Control. Thanks again to the fine Alberta record retailer Blackbird Music, which you can learn more about and place special orders at blackbird.ca. Also to live at masseyhall.com, where you can watch beautifully captured concerts by great Canadian artists. And also to Pizza Trocadero, The Bookshelf, and Planet Bean Coffee in Guelph, and Grandad's Donuts in Hamilton, Ontario, for all of their in-kind support for this show. Thanks as always to Jim Guthrie for letting me use some music of his on the show. You can learn more about Jim and his work at jimguthrie.org. And finally, thank you for listening to this episode with Tamara, and for subscribing to the podcast, and perhaps asking your friends to check it out. Maybe they'll subscribe to it if they like what they are hearing, and just spreading the word about it. It means a lot. 600 episodes. Well, that seems like a lot. And hopefully there will be 50 more, 600 more. I was going to say 600 more, but that seems like a lot. We'll keep going. We'll keep going as long as we can. And it's all thanks to you. So thank you for your support for 600 episodes. I will talk to you for the 600 during the 601st episode. I'll talk to you again But for now, I say thank you and bye for now.